The hook-a scream once echoed through the stone-cold halls of the Kremlin, a sound so hollow and filled with grief that it seemed to change the very air of Russia forever. In a dimly lit chamber, a father stood over his son's body. A heavy, iron-tipped scepter lay on the floor, slick with the blood of the heir to the throne. The man holding it was Ivan IV, the first Tsar of all the Russias. History remembers him as Grozny, Ivan the Terrible. But was this monster born, or was he forged in a furnace of betrayal and loss? Today, we peel back the crimson veil of history to reveal the dark descent of a man who built an empire with one hand and crushed its future with the other. The Boyar Viper's Nest. Ivan's story began in a nightmare. Orphaned at age 8, the young prince was a prisoner in his own palace. He watched the Boyars, the greedy, power-hungry nobles, treat the crown like a toy and the treasury like a feast. They wore his father's clothes and left Ivan in rags, often cold and hungry. In the shadows of the Kremlin, he learned a lethal lesson. Trust is a death sentence, and mercy is for the weak. He saw his mother die in agony, likely poisoned, leaving him alone in a viper's nest. By the time he was 17, the boy was gone. In 1547, he declared himself Tsar, wearing the crown of Monomac, and began a reign fueled by a deep-seated hatred for those who had mocked him. The conqueror of the East, but before the madness, there was greatness. Ivan was a visionary who sought to turn a scattered collection of principalities into a global titan. He turned his eyes toward the East, launching a brutal and holy crusade against the Mongol remnants. In 1552, he led an army of 150,000 to the walls of Kazan. When the city's defenses finally shattered, Ivan's forces showed no mercy, absorbing the Khanate into the Russian heartland. 4 years later, he crushed the Khanate of Astrakhan, securing the vital trade routes of the Volga River. He didn't stop there. Under his command, the legendary Cossacks crossed the Ural Mountains, beginning the massive expansion into the untamed wilds of Siberia. Ivan was no longer just a prince, he was the architect of an empire that now touched 2 continents. The turning point and the Black Riders. The light of his reign died with his wife, Anastasia. She was the only soul who could calm his burning rage. When she died suddenly in 1560, Ivan's fragile mind snapped. He smelled poison in every corridor and saw a traitor in every shadow. To purge his enemies, he created the Oprichnina, his private army of shadows. 6,000 men dressed in jet-black robes, riding black horses with severed dog heads and brooms tied to their saddles. They were his loyal allies, a cult of death that answered only to the Tsar. They rode through the night like ghosts, dragging nobles from their beds to face tortures so creative and cruel they are still whispered about today. In the city of Novgorod, Ivan suspected a plot and unleashed a 5-week massacre. The river Volkhov was so choked with the bodies of the dead that it froze over in a crust of human blood. The fatal blow, the climax of his madness, came on a cold November night in 1581. In a fit of uncontrollable fury over a domestic dispute, Ivan turned on his own son and namesake, Ivan Ivanovich. As their voices rose, the Tsar's iron-tipped scepter, the symbol of his absolute power, became a weapon of murder. One swift, heavy blow to the temple sent the prince to the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. The madness left Ivan's eyes instantly, replaced by a soul-crushing realization. He threw himself onto his son, kissing his bleeding forehead and screaming, "I have killed my son. I have killed my son." But there was no answer. The only man capable of leading Russia into the next century was gone, killed by the very hand that was supposed to protect him. Legacy of the damned. Ivan died 3 years later, a hollowed-out ghost of a man who spent his nights screaming at the spirits of those he had butchered. He left behind a unified nation, but a shattered dynasty, leading Russia into the time of troubles. Was he a necessary tyrant who saved Russia from collapse, or a man who lost his soul to the dark? The history books still argue, but the blood on the Kremlin floors tells its own story. If you enjoyed this journey into the dark side of history, hit the like button and subscribe. Tell us in the comments, who is the most terrifying ruler in history?